Give us your backstory. How did you get into education and what steps did you take to get where you are now as an education consultant and speaker?
Like many students growing up in the 80s and 90s in schools that didn't quite serve us as well as we wanted them to, I was a educational mess. I did not value education. I didn't go to my classes. I skipped a lot of things. I was a degenerate in school. And when I was in college, again, I did as much as I needed to do to pass my classes and maintain my scholarship, things like that. But I certainly did not understand the value of education at all. And so when I was graduating, I didn't know what to do with my life. I hadn't learned much in college and I hadn't paved a pathway for myself. But the one thing I did know was that I didn't want to settle down and start a family the way that my parents wanted me to. So I had to figure something out. And I discovered this program called Teach for America. Had no idea what it was about, had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I applied and I miraculously got in. And after college, I did a 2-year Teach for America stint, and it changed my life fundamentally. It changed my understanding of the world. It changed my understanding of education. It changed my understanding of myself. It was the first time I had ever done anything that was so hard and didn't give up. And I felt like it was outside of myself. If I had given up, I would have given up on 30 kids that I was teaching. And that was really what drew me into education. I understood what the education gap was. I understood what the value of education for low-income students was. I understood what the value of education, continuing education for an adult like me was. I think I learned more as a Teach for America alum and also as a core member. Also, I was getting my master's at the same time. So I learned more at that point than I think I had ever learned consciously when I was a kid. And so that just like dominoed into all the other things that I've done since. So I was a teacher for a little while. I was a dean. So I got asked to start coaching other teachers at the charter school network that I was at. And then I developed a program for other deans because we were scaling from 2 schools to 15 schools in Brownsville, Brooklyn, actually all over Brooklyn. And I built a program for other deans to learn about how to coach teachers, built a teacher residency program that was modeled after Teach for America, and had a few brief stints here and there. I did some adjunct professoring at the same time as teaching and worked at Pearson for a minute. But then I got this opportunity to travel around the world and build international schools. And so for 2.5 years, I was in Shenzhen, China, in India, in Bali, in Italy, all over the US, learning about the best school models and building the infrastructure for how teachers and school leaders get professionally developed and evaluated. And I was the head of professional learning at this network, and I built the entire ecosystem for how they do that. And it was such a remarkable experience because not only did I learn how to create these ecosystems for a network of schools, but because I was visiting schools all over the world, learning about what really incredible teachers were doing, I realized a lot of things about the international education ecosystem that I had never learned before. And one of them was that there's incredible pockets of talent everywhere around the world. But the downfall of that was that it wasn't being shared. It wasn't being recognized. And teachers actually weren't sharing as much with each other and providing resources to each other as much as they could. And while the entire world was being transformed by technology, education just wasn't. And so that's really where my journey with the startups started, which is I wanted to bring technology into education in a way that was purposeful and pedagogy aligned. And I also wanted educators to connect with each other in a way that was meaningful to them and in a way that was driven by them and not by a bureaucratic top-down system. So that's what brought me to the startup and the nonprofit that I run today, which is Ed3DAO.
I'll be honest, this is probably the 50th episode about, and I have never been shocked with anyone's answer until today. Y'all, if you're out there watching and listening, you don't have to have things figured out right away. You don't. If you're able to explore your interests and your passions and find your purpose early on, phenomenal, fantastic. But that's not reality because our parents, they didn't have internet. They didn't have Google. They didn't have YouTube. They didn't know how to heal from trauma. They didn't know how to live a life of their own making. They did what they were told to: get married, have children, get a degree, and get a job that they'll be in forever. That's not our reality. I used to feel like, oh man, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. No, we're perfect where we are. The way we are right now is perfect, but this version is going to be obsolete next month, next year, next 6 months. So get it together.
Fundamentally agree with that, George. And just to add a little bit more narrative to that, totally agree that like we need to forgive our parents for not being able to support us in the way that maybe we wanted. They just
Uh-huh.
didn't have enough information. But what you said about finding purpose is a really important thing that I think we need to talk a little bit more about in a practical sense. So for some time in the 90s and the early 2000s, we wanted our students and our children to really drive towards what they loved and what their talents were. But that's actually not enough, right? Because students also have to figure out what they're going to be able to create a sustainable life with, right? And so, one of the concepts that has been really a driving force for our organization and for me is the concept of Ikigai. It's a Japanese concept. It's been manufactured a little bit for the westernized audience, but for the purposes of this conversation, we'll keep it at the Ikigai framework. And basically, what Ikigai says is that in order for to find your purpose in life, you have to have four quadrants that sort of come together. One is what you love, right? What you are passionate about, things like that. The second is what you're talented at, so what you're actually good at. So if you love something but you're not good at it, then it's not a good fit, right? The third is what the world needs, right? So what does the world need you to be good at? And what talents does the world need you to perform for it? And the fourth is what you can make money off of, right? So there's all four of those quadrants need to come together in order for you to find your purpose in life. Now, if you're only pursuing what you can make money off of and what you're good at, but you're not pursuing what you're passionate about and what the world needs, then the purpose isn't quite there. It's just a vocation. And so those four quadrants really make a huge difference when you're thinking about what kind of purpose and what kind of life do I want to live in a way that's sustainable to me and I'm intellectually stimulated all the time.
Folks, rewind this and start taking notes. This is an episode where we're learning. Thank you, Vriti. Thank you so much. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify or iTunes, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button and share this episode with your family, friends, and colleagues who are interested in self improvement through lifelong learning.